They called me the useless daughter, the one who would never matter. They took the trust fund my grandmother left me and handed it to my siblings. I almost gave up, almost ran. But instead, I stayed. What they didn't know was that I was building something in silence, something that would one day bring their empire crashing down. Come along with me as I share my story. My name is Clara. Before I continue, if you love true life stories filled with suspense, twists, and life lessons, make sure you subscribe. Because trust me, you don't want to miss a thing. The gilded cage of my family's mansion was most suffocating at 7:30 in the morning. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the breakfast room, illuminating the dust motes dancing over the polished mahogany table. But it did not feel warm. It was a room designed for perfection, every piece of silverware aligned with military precision, a stark contrast to the messy, emotional world I inhabited. I, Clara Reed, was the flaw in this perfect picture. The air was thick with the scent of expensive coffee and freshly squeezed orange juice, but it was the aroma of ambition and disdain that I breathed in daily. I slipped into my seat, the chair legs scraping softly against the marble floor, a sound that always felt too loud, too clumsy. My father, Robert Reed, sat at the head of the table. He was a big man with a loud voice. He did not look at me when I sat down. He was reading from his tablet, his face serious. "Clara," he acknowledged, his voice a low rumble that conveyed more disappointment than greeting. My mother, Isabella, sat poised at the other end. She was beautiful, like a model in a magazine. Her eyes swept over my simple cotton dress. "Good morning, Clara," she said. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were not. "Is that what you are wearing today? We have so many nice clothes for you." It wasn't a question. It was an indictment. Before I could form a reply, my siblings made their entrance. Nathan, 2 years my junior, strode in with the unearned confidence of a crown prince. His suit was tailored, his smile sharp. Claire, the youngest, followed, a carbon copy of our mother. She laughed a little laugh that was like tiny bells. She knew how to act at parties. She knew how to make people like her. "Morning, everyone," Nathan said, clapping a hand on my shoulder as he passed, a gesture that felt less like affection and more like a reminder of his presence. "Big day today. Sealing the Henderson merger. Dad, the numbers look incredible." Father finally looked up, a genuine smile transforming his face. "That's my boy. Knew you could handle it." The conversation swirled around me, talk of mergers, stock options, and strategic acquisitions. I was an island in the stream of their success. I tried to contribute once, mentioning an article I'd read on sustainable business practices. Nathan chuckled, not unkindly, but with a patronizing air that was somehow worse. "That's sweet, Clara, but that's a PR move for later. First, we need to secure the capital. Stick to your paintings." The word paintings hung in the air. In this house, it was another word for useless. The worst part was the memory of my inheritance. My grandmother, my father's mother, had been the only one who saw the world in color as I did. She'd left me a trust fund, a substantial one, with a note that read, "For your dreams, my bright girl." It was my bridge to freedom, to a life where I could create without this constant, grinding soundtrack of disapproval. 2 months ago, my parents had called me into my father's study. The room was a temple to his success, all dark wood and leather, smelling of old money and cigar smoke. "Clara, we've decided to reallocate your grandmother's trust," my father had said, his voice leaving no room for argument. He stood by the window, his back to me, as if he couldn't even bear to look at me during the execution. "We have serious concerns about your financial literacy. This capital is significant. In your hands, it would be a liability." I felt tears in my eyes, but I did not let them fall. "It was my money," I whispered. "Grandma left it for me." My mother had been the one to deliver the killing blow, her voice syrupy with fake concern. "It's for your own good, darling. We can't have you being taken advantage of. Nathan needs an injection for his new venture fund, and Claire's foundation requires a substantial endowment. This way, the money helps the whole family. It is for our future." Our future. The words echoed in my head. They did not include me in that future. I was just a tool for them to use. A resource to be drained for their own benefit. The pain was a physical ache in my chest, a cold, hard knot of resentment. I felt like running away. But as I walked out of the study that day empty-handed, something had shifted. The fire of defiance, long banked by their criticism, had found a new source of fuel. I would not run away. I would stay right here, in the belly of the beast, and I would build something so magnificent, so unignorable, that they would have to see me. They had taken my money, but they had not yet broken my will. The useless daughter was about to find her use. The city library became my sanctuary, a fortress of silence and solace against the noise of my home life. It was a grand, old building with high, vaulted ceilings painted with fading constellations and the scent of aged paper and polished wood. Here, the insults of the morning could not reach me. Here, I was not Clara the useless. I was just a girl with a stack of books and a desperate dream. My corner was in the back, near the large windows that overlooked a quiet garden. I had claimed a heavy oak table, its surface scarred with the initials of lovers and the doodles of students long gone. It was my war room. The books I devoured were my weapons: the freelancer's Bible, web design for beginners, the psychology of user interface, digital marketing in a modern age. I filled notebooks with sketches of website layouts, merging my understanding of color theory and composition with the new language of pixels and user experience. For weeks, I noticed him. A young man with messy brown hair and glasses, often buried behind a tower of programming manuals a few tables away. He had a focused intensity, but his eyes were kind. He'd sometimes glance over, his gaze lingering on the colorful design sketches that spilled from my notebook. I kept my head down, pretending not to notice. One rainy Tuesday, my resolve finally cracked. I was struggling with a complex concept about back-end functionality, my frustration mounting. I let out a quiet, exasperated sigh and dropped my head into my hands. A moment later, a shadow fell over my table. I looked up. It was him. "Sorry to bother you," he said, his voice softer than I expected. "But I've been watching you for a couple of weeks. You're consistently here, and I noticed you're reading some pretty hardcore stuff." "I'm Alex." I was immediately on guard. "Clara," I said shortly, pulling my notebook closer. I was shy. "My name is Clara," I said. I closed my notebook a little. He gestured to the open page on my laptop, a tutorial on CSS that was making my head spin. "That's a tough one to tackle alone. You're an artist, right?" He pointed to my sketchbook. "The layouts are beautiful. Really intuitive." His compliment, so genuine and unexpected, disarmed me. "Thank you," I replied, blushing slightly. No one in my family ever asked about my art like that. "I am trying to be a web designer," I said. "Your art is your biggest advantage," he said, his eyes lighting up with passion. "Most developers like me can make a website work, but making people feel something when they see it is a different skill. A website is just a digital canvas. The code is the frame, but the design is the soul," he explained. He pulled up a chair. "Let me guess, you're stuck on how the drop-down menu integrates with the main navigation without breaking the visual flow?" He saw the problem instantly. For the next hour, he patiently explained the principles, drawing diagrams on a spare piece of paper. Alex was a freelance web developer, and he saw in me a missing piece. "I can build the engine," he said, "but you can design the beautiful car that everyone wants to drive." He explained the difficult ideas in a way I could understand. He was a teacher and a friend. Our secret partnership was born in that hushed library. We became a team. He taught me the technical tools, Figma, HTML, CSS, and I learned with a ferocious hunger. We practiced by creating fake websites for fake companies, his code giving life to my designs. He was the first person since my grandmother who didn't see my art as a limitation, but as a superpower. In the quiet heart of the library, with the rain pattering against the windows, I was no longer useless. I was an apprentice, a creator, and for the first time in a long time, I had a friend. My life became a carefully orchestrated double performance. By day, I was the docile, disappointing daughter. I endured the breakfast barbs, nodded blankly during dinner conversations about equity and market shares, and pretended to be working on a series of landscapes in my room. The contempt was a constant, low hum. Nathan would joke about setting me up with a friend of his, a nice, simple guy who wouldn't mind a wife with a hobby. Claire would sigh dramatically and say, "I just wish you'd try, Clara." For mother and father. They had no idea that the hobby was now a thriving, clandestine business. With Alex's help, I started a secret business. I called it C. Reed Designs. My first real client was a struggling independent bookstore, The Last Chapter. I'd found their plea for help on a freelance platform. Their current website was a tragic, blinking eyesore from the early 2000s. Working from my bedroom late at night, the glow of my laptop my only light, I poured my soul into it. I designed a digital space that felt like walking into a warm, cozy shop. I used soft, earthy colors, elegant typography that evoked classic book spines, and created a feature that allowed users to wander through virtual shelves. Alex handled the complex coding to make it all work seamlessly. When we presented it to the elderly owner, Mrs. Higgins, over a video call, she cried happy tears. It's perfect," she whispered. "It feels like my shop." The payment that landed in my secret bank account a week later. It was not a lot of money, but it felt like $1 million. It was more than just money, it was validation. It was a tangible piece of my worth. Money I earned with my own brain and my own talent. The success of the Last Chapter deal led to more referrals. A local artisan soap maker, a new vegan bakery, a boutique jewelry designer. With each project, my confidence grew. My designs were clean, intuitive, and told a story. They had a soul, something I quickly realized was desperately missing from the corporate, sterile websites my father's company produced. The tension at home became a palpable thing. I was a ghost, silently siphoning the very essence of what they valued, success, right from under their noses. The irony was a secret feast I gorged on. Few weeks later, I saw a posting on a premium freelance board. The client was Swift Solutions. My blood ran cold. It was one of my father's flagship clients, a tech giant that accounted for a significant portion of his company's revenue. Their brief complained of an outdated digital presence and a lack of innovative vision. They were openly looking for a new designer. My hands trembled as I read the brief. This was the battlefield. Taking this job would be an act of war. Alex let out a low whistle when I showed him. "Clara, this is huge. And dangerous. Are you sure?" I looked at the brief, then at the mock-up I was working on for a small pottery studio. I thought of my father's dismissive tone, my mother's pitying looks, Nathan's condescending pats on the head. The quiet fire that had been burning in me for months roared into an inferno. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "We're going to take it." The Swift Solutions project became our obsession. We worked in the library with the intensity of surgeons performing a heart transplant. I designed a website that was a masterpiece of corporate storytelling, sleek, powerful, and incredibly user-friendly. It wasn't just a digital brochure, it was an experience. Alex built a backend so smooth and efficient it made their old system look prehistoric. We presented our work to Mr. Evans, the CEO of Swift Solutions, on a secure video call, my identity still hidden. The silence on his end after our presentation was agonizing. Then he spoke, his voice filled with awe. "This is exceptional. This is exactly the forward-thinking vision we've been begging Reed Enterprises for. You're hired. Send over the contract." The victory was intoxicating. The fee was more than I had earned from all my previous projects combined. I was no longer just a freelancer. I was a contender. The fallout at home was immediate and dramatic. It started a week later at dinner. My father stormed into the dining room, his face thunderous. He threw his tablet onto the table, making the silverware jump. "Unbelievable," he roared. "Swift Solutions is terminating our contract. After 15 years. Nathan looked up, shocked. "What? Why? Who did they go with?" "Some nobody. A ghost operation called C. Reed Designs." My father spat the name like it was poison. "Who is this person? I want every resource we have finding out. They've been poaching our smaller clients for months, and now this." I kept my eyes on my plate, carefully cutting a piece of chicken. My heart was hammering against my ribs so violently I was sure they could hear it. The ghost was at the table. The saboteur was his own daughter. It has to be a disgruntled former employee, Nathan reasoned, his mind racing. Someone with inside knowledge of our processes. No one else could have pulled this off. Claire sniffed. It's so vulgar. Stealing clients like that. I said nothing. I just savored the taste of my secret, a flavor more delicious than any food. But the biggest secret was yet to be uncovered. A few days later, my father, in a rage over another lost client, had left a file on his home office printer. It was a financial report. Normally, I wouldn't have looked, but the header Project Chimera Offshore Holdings caught my eye. Curiosity overpowering my fear, I took the file to my room and scanned it. The numbers and accounts were complex, but the pattern was clear. There were massive, unexplained transfers to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. It was money being hidden, moved in a way that was anything but legal. I took photos of every page with my phone. Later, in the library, I showed the images to Alex. His face grew pale as he scrolled through them. Clara, he whispered, his voice tense. This is bad. This is really bad. This is not just business. This is fraud. This is against the law. Your parents, they are not just mean. They are criminals. I felt cold all over. The game had just changed entirely. This was no longer about proving I was smart. This was about something much bigger. I had proof that could destroy my entire family. The power in my hands was suddenly very heavy and very scary. The night of the Reed Enterprises annual gala was the pinnacle of my family's social calendar. The mansion was transformed into a palace of opulence, filled with the city's elite, the air buzzing with the sound of clinking champagne flutes and hollow laughter. I watched from the top of the grand staircase, a spectator in my own home. I was wearing a dress my mother had chosen for me, a frilly, pastel confection that made me look like a decorative cake topper. It was the uniform of the useless daughter. But underneath it, I wore my resolve like armor. An hour later, I emerged from my room, transformed. I had changed into a sleek, impeccably tailored black pantsuit. It was severe, powerful, and utterly unlike anything anyone in my family would ever wear. I looked like a CEO. I looked like my father's competitor. I made my entrance into the ballroom. The reaction was a wave of silence that spread out from my epicenter. I saw the confusion on the faces of the guests, the shock on my sister's face, the calculating glare from my mother. I walked straight towards my father, who was holding court with Mr. Evans of Swift Solutions. Clara, my father said, his voice a mixture of confusion and warning. What is the meaning of this? You're causing a scene. I'm not causing a scene, father. I'm networking, I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying in the sudden hush. I turned to Mr. Evans and extended my hand. Mr. Evans, it's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. I'm C. Reed. The gasp from the crowd was audible. My father's face turned white. Nathan, standing nearby, looked like he had seen a ghost. You, my father choked out, his voice a strangled whisper. Then, it escalated into a roar. You treacherous little witch. You've been stealing from your own family. You've been sabotaging me from within my own house. The entire ballroom was frozen, a tableau of scandal and shock. I didn't steal anything, I replied, my voice still eerily calm, a stark contrast to his fury. They chose me because I was better. But you're right, father, I have been living in your house. And you've always been so careless with your things. I pulled a small, sleek USB drive from my pocket and held it up. Like this file, for instance. Project Chimera. It makes for fascinating reading. I have a copy ready to be sent to the Securities and Exchange Commission with a single click. But I thought I'd give you a chance to explain it to all your friends first. The silence in the room was complete. You could have heard a pin drop. My mother let out a small, terrified cry. My father stared at the USB drive as if it were a venomous snake, his eyes wide with a primal, terrified fear. The mighty Robert Reed, the man who had built an empire on a foundation of arrogance and shady deals, had been cornered. And the person holding the key to his cage was the daughter he had thrown away. The child he called useless. In the end, the truth was a wrecking ball. The evidence was irrefutable. The scandal destroyed Reed Enterprises. My parents faced a litany of federal charges, their reputations and fortune left in ruins. They were in very big trouble. I, however, did not fall. I stood tall. My business, Reed Designs, became more famous than ever. Everyone wanted the company that had beaten Robert Reed. This, combined with the undeniable quality of my work, made us become a huge success. We moved from the library to a bright, airy penthouse office downtown. The first thing I hung on the wall was the frame of my grandmother and a painting from my old room, a vibrant, chaotic, and beautiful explosion of color. Nathan and Claire, stripped of their inheritance and status, eventually reached out, their tones now hesitant, almost respectful. The reconciliation was slow and fragile, but it was a start. One evening, standing on my office balcony overlooking the glittering city, Alex joined me, handing me a glass of champagne. "To the useless daughter," he said, a wide, proud grin on his face. I clinked my glass against his, the sound clear and bright like a bell. "They called me useless because I saw a different world," I said, the city lights sprawling before me like a canvas of infinite possibility. "They thought my art had no power in their world of numbers. But in the end, I used it to design their downfall and paint my own future." I took a sip, the taste of victory sweet on my tongue. And that is the masterpiece I'm most proud of. The last laugh was mine, and it echoed not in a mansion of scorn, but in an empire of my own making. What would you have done if you were in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for watching.